Welcome to another explainer. Okay, let's dive into this. Today, we are unpacking a highly critical and honestly fascinating document called The Illusion of Agency. The core argument here is bold. We are actively losing the war for our kids' attention. But get this, it's not because teenagers suddenly lost all their willpower overnight. It's actually because of the hidden, meticulously engineered architecture of modern social media itself. We're going to break down exactly how the environments on our screens are structurally built to trap us, and why the old school ways we try to protect young people are, quite frankly, completely missing the mark. To really understand where we are, we've got to look back at where we started. Picture the year 2006. The internet back then was fundamentally a user-driven experience. Social media was all about conscious choices, right? Your feed was chronological, you saw what your friends posted, exactly in the order they posted it, and the best part? The scroll was finite. When you hit the end of the new posts, you were done. You just log off. Today, though, it's a completely different beast. Modern platforms rely heavily on predictive analytics to create what the source calls involuntary attention capture. It's no longer about what you actually intend to do. The whole system is engineered to keep you hooked using an infinite scroll, deliberately preying on adolescent brains that are uniquely sensitive to cravings for connection and dopamine. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the traditional adult reaction to all of this. When kids started spending 6 hours a day glued to their phones, what did society do? Well, we rolled out digital wellness toolkits and screen time dashboards. We entirely blamed the user. We labeled it a failure of willpower, a simple time management issue, or just a lack of discipline at home. But the authors of our source material argue that this reaction is deeply, deeply flawed. We basically bought into the idea that a massive, engineered environmental crisis could be solved by just scolding teenagers and expecting them to magically change their behavior. If we just stop blaming the teens for a second, we really have to ask, why are they silently struggling? The data shows massive spikes in pre-adolescent and teen anxiety, totally shattered attention spans, and compulsive habits, like literally needing to check a phone the millisecond it buzzes. We need a major paradigm shift here. We have to empathize and realize these behaviors aren't character flaws. They are totally predictable reactions to a radically lopsided digital environment. Right now, we are sending kids into these highly automated, predatory arenas armed with nothing but empty cliches and basic safety lectures. And then we're shocked when they struggle psychologically, socially, and spiritually. The real reason those basic safety lectures just don't work anymore is because of a massive architectural shift in how platforms are designed. In the early days, platforms just wanted to persuade you to visit. Simple enough, right? But developers quickly figured out that a user's conscious intent was actually getting in the way of infinite growth. So they changed the game. They pivoted from just persuading users to systematically trapping and holding their attention. It's an absolute beast designed to consume focus. They basically bulldozed all the logical stopping points, all the natural peaks and valleys of the online experience, just to eliminate any friction that might make a teenager put the device down. The ultimate goal became keeping that developing brain locked in for maximum corporate profit. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how they pull it off. This is the mechanism model developed by the Social Media Research Institute. They argue that we have to stop looking at a kid staring at a phone as a behavioral problem and start looking at these structural variables operating right beneath the scroll. These are these 7 core variables they've identified. And let me tell you, these mechanisms tilt the power dynamic entirely away from the teenage user and hand it right over to multi-billion-dollar tech platforms. Over the next few slides, we're going to walk through each of these hidden engines so you can see exactly how the traps snap shut. Let's start with trap number 1, attention capture. This is way beyond a friendly little ping that someone liked your photo. The Institute explains that platforms use high-contrast sensory triggers. We're talking specific, engineered vibrations, tones, and those brightly colored little red notification badges. They are explicitly calculated to interrupt a teenager's focus and drag them right back into the app. And if a teen tries to ignore them, the design weaponizes their natural fear of missing out, FOMO, which immediately triggers anxiety. It's like a constant, engineered tap on the shoulder that literally never goes away. So, the crucial point is what happens once they're pulled back in. That brings us to variable 2, reinforcement systems. Think of this as the slot machine effect. Imagine pulling the lever on a casino slot machine. You definitely don't win every time, right? The payoff is completely random. And that randomness is exactly what makes it so incredibly addictive. Well, social media feeds operate the exact same way. Not every single post is going to be interesting, But randomly, out of nowhere, the algorithm serves up something that triggers a massive hit of dopamine and oxytocin in the brain. Because they never know when that next win is coming, they just keep scrolling and scrolling, waiting for the next neurological reward.
Variable number 3 is emotional amplification. Platform designers know for an absolute fact that highly emotional, strongly worded content drives engagement up the wall. It keeps people glued to the feed. But the source makes a really critical point about why this is particularly dangerous for kids. It completely distorts their sense of reality. By deliberately pumping up extreme emotions, these platforms ensure kids stay vulnerable to distorted, hyperdramatic worldviews. Truthfully, the algorithm doesn't care if a video makes a user furiously angry or deeply sad. It only cares that the emotion is intense enough to stop them from closing the app.
Next up is continuous exposure. The source uses this perfect metaphor for it, the bottomless bowl. Imagine eating soup from a bowl that magically refills itself from the bottom. You would literally never know when you were done. That is the infinite scroll. There are zero pagination elements anymore, no clicking to page 2, no natural stopping cues. Because they completely bulldoze the friction of having to click next, users lose all track of time. I mean, we've all been there, haven't we? A teenager might genuinely intend to do a quick 5-minute check of their feed before starting homework, and suddenly they look up and realize they've been held captive by the app for 3 hours. Then we hit algorithmic personalization. Now, this isn't just the platform casually guessing what you might like. These are real-time, predictive models that instantly adapt to every single micro-choice you make. Every millisecond, a teen, or honestly any of us, hovers over a video, the algorithm is learning. It immediately feeds them similar ideas, building an incredibly tight, relentless feedback loop. The source material explains that this systematically isolates teenagers into rigid echo chambers, or filter bubbles, which narrows their worldview and warps reality just to keep them engaged with stuff they already agree with. Variable 6 is persuasive design. This refers to the actual user interface and the strategic loop of prompt, action, and reward. You get a prompt, you take an action, like swiping, and boom, you get a reward. But what's genuinely concerning here, according to the document, is the long-term chemical impact on the brain. As teens endlessly cycle through these interface prompts, their developing brains actually start building up a physical resistance to those dopamine and oxytocin hits. The scary result? They require more and more screen time just to feel a normal, baseline level of satisfaction. Let's move to and see how this builds into our final and honestly, perhaps most damaging variable. Social comparison structures. The platforms plaster visible, quantifiable metrics on absolutely everything. Likes, reposts, follower counts, view counts. For a teenager, these aren't just data points anymore. They become a literal proxy for their popularity and their self-worth. The Institute's model draws a very direct correlation between these highly visible, metric-driven environments and the huge spike in pre-adolescent and teen anxiety. When your entire social value is quantified on a public dashboard for everyone to judge, the pressure is just relentless. So how on earth do we fight back against a machine like this? The source is adamant that the old 2006-era critical thinking and basic media literacy are completely useless against an adaptive machine that preys on your emotional vulnerabilities in real time. We have to evolve from what they call passive compliance to systemic resistance. Passive compliance is the pearl clutching, the isolated phone bans that just delay the inevitable, and throwing out empty platitudes. Systemic resistance, on the other hand, means equipping parents and educators with concrete tools. We're talking about actually teaching students how to map out a platform's slot machine loops, sitting down to audit their default algorithm settings together, and training them to actively recognize when an interface is explicitly trying to weaponize their FOMO. Which brings us to a final, provocative thought I want to leave you with today. Look closely at your local schools, your homes, and your community digital citizenship programs. Ask yourself, are they actively auditing and explaining this platform architecture to kids, or are they still just entirely focused on punishing student behavior? The source leaves us with an incredibly powerful mandate. It is time to stop blaming our kids for drowning in an ocean that Silicon Valley built. Sure, we can't instantly dismantle the predatory architecture, but we absolutely can change our literacy. We need to start showing them exactly how these engineered currents work so they can actually navigate them safely. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I really encourage you to take a hard look at the hidden architecture of the apps you're using every single day.